Sampai status apa? Ada dua presentation.
All right, I'm gonna try to roll through the couple of different lectures on like intubations and chest tubes. Uday wanted me to give a lecture on the motivated learner, so I have absolutely no idea what he meant by this. All right, I want to preface that I have absolutely no idea what he meant by this. All right, so I think what he was trying to get at is that I, throughout my learning, used a lot of podcasts and free online, like access to medication. Like I used a lot of it. Like I read textbooks. Yeah. Yeah, I had like Uday asked for like the motivated learner, and I was just like, I have no idea what he means. Like I have no idea. So if this is, we're gonna go quick because I have, like I said, I know what he wanted. All right. But I think what he's trying to get at, and how I kind of interpret like the title of this would basically mean is that it's practice like isn't something that you do when you're good. It's something that you do to get good, right? And basically, practice doesn't make perfect, but practice makes it permanent, right? And so if you set and you continuously learn and read and things like that and incorporate into your lifestyle, it's something that you just do. It's not something that you force yourself to do. It becomes a habit, right? So everybody talks about every single self-help book or anything I've ever read. They always talk about this stupid 10,000 hour rule, right? And so when you actually go through and you look at it over the course of like a 5-year residency or a 5-year training program that goes 48 weeks a year, you're going to accumulate somewhere between 1,500 and 15,000 and 16,000 hours, right? But there's no ER doctors here. Okay. All right. So what I can tell you is, so I came from emergency medicine. Lindsay came from emergency medicine, right? You guys are all coming from a medicine background. I can tell you that half of your education in the outpatient setting literally no longer applies, right? You learned it for nothing. Congratulations, right? So what you're really talking about is that within your subspecialty now, because you are now a subspecialist, you're now an intensivist. Over the course of your training over the next 2 years, you're going to get about 4,500 hours, right? So yes, I know. So the whole point of that is you will not know everything by the time you finish this program. It's just literally impossible. And so if you study an additional 1 to 3 hours a day, and by this I mean I lived up near Cherry Hill, so I had a 45-minute drive to Vineland every day. I listened to a medical podcast on my way in and on my way home, because the time that you're in a car is dead time. If you need that is like use Zen time, and like you need it to like listen to music or listen to like the radio or like listen to NPR or like literally listen to anything else, so that when you get home you're like in a mood to like crack open a book or like crack open your computer or crack open a podcast and listen to it. Then have at it. My daughter was born like 3 weeks into my intern year, and my son was born before fellowship. Like when I got home, I had to put on like that hat. So like when I was in the car, like my me time was my study time. So I used it for podcasts, right? If you listen to an hour to 2 to 3 hours a day, you're going to gain an additional 700 to 1,500 hours, right? So if you're already in the hospital for 4,500 and you can pick up an extra 1,500, you've already moved the needle significantly towards that 10 hours of expertise, right? But it's got to also be, the point of all this is, I guess what I'm trying to say for the motivated learner is that you're going to practice your first couple years as an intensivist, and you are not going to be an expert, right? You are going to encounter things every single day that you look at, and you're just going to be like, yeah, yeah, and you're going to walk back into the room, and you're going to pull up the computer, and you're going to look something up. Like, it happens all the time, right? Like, I'm 1 year out, and I think Lindsay's 2 years out, and I guarantee you, like, and then you walk back away, and you're just like, on my phone, like, right? You're going to look it up, because you're not going to know it, and the reason is because
You know everything.
yes. Yeah. Well, so the reason why is that critical care literally sits at the intersection across all specialties, right? Endocrinologists, their emergencies become our emergencies, right? Dermatologists' emergencies become our emergencies, right? Every single surgeon has a complication. Every single surgeon does an invasive procedure. So not only do you have to know all of medicine, you need to know a substantial amount about surgery, right? And so the reason why you're never going to be an expert and you're always going to have these things is because you're going to cross over into cardiology literature. You're going to cross over into nephrology literature. You're going to cross over into rheumatology, right? And you're not going to know everything, but you need to know the basics, and you need to know the initial step and the second step, right? Because that is when you're really reaching for the specialist to come in on the third, fourth, and fifth step, right? But you need to know how to diagnose it. You need to know the upfront management of it, and then it's like get the specialist involved, because by the time they get involved, they're not at the bedside, right?
Buy enough time to
Buy enough time to phone a friend, right?
Also, like a very good point, because it has to do with where you go look for resources, right? You don't look under critical care for the cardiology stuff, you look under cardiology literature. And the point about that being that the critical care literature might kind of skate over things that are a little bit more nuanced, but if you're the cardiac intensivist, like you don't have the liberty of being like a little bit skating over it. Like you have to know details, and like that you're going to find in the cardiology literature, and the cardiothoracic literature you're not going to necessarily find it like well fleshed out in critical, like just critical care literature.
Yeah. And critical care is so broad now. Like there's neurocritical care, there's going to be cardiac critical care, there's general medical critical care, there's surgical critical care, and all of them are different. They all come with their own nuances and everything like that. So the point is that critical care is just a different beast. It's just a different beast, right? So you're not gonna be, but you can be. You just got to make it a habit, right? And so the best way, because I've read a couple of books on this. Don't judge me.
We all have.
Yeah. So you have to turn it into an identity, right? If you're like a Hasidic Jew, you don't eat bacon. It's part of your identity, right? You don't eat pork. Like you can be the guy like, I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat bread. I wake up every day in the morning and I go work out. That's my identity. I wake up every day and I read for an hour. That's my identity. Like how you form a habit is you don't look at it as like sometimes I'm this and sometimes I'm that. It's like, no, this is what I do. This is my identity. This is who I am. So it becomes your identity, and how you identify it yourself, it becomes a habit, right? It sucks, right? Nobody wants to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to like I wake up when I work at Atlanticare, we go 7:30 to 7:30. I wake up at 4:30 and I go for a run, and it sucks, and I hate every second of it. But I've begun to really love the process. Is that like I come home, I have dinner, I talk with my wife, I go to bed well before she does, and then I sleep for like 6 hours. I get up and I go for a run. Like that's my process, and I've become to love the process. So I don't mind waking up at 4:30 because it's who I am, it's my identity, and I've learned to like really love that process because it gives me an extra hour of me time, which I don't get any other time. So you have to love that process, because if you don't love it, you're just going to throw it away. You have to get sufficient sleep. Yeah. The true story is, like, if you really want to build a habit and you really want to like build a healthy lifestyle, especially, you're probably gonna have to give up sleep. It's like the only thing that you can give up, but you're probably gonna give up sleep. So, but this probably goes along with what your goals are, right? You should probably set like a daily goal. You should set a weekly goal. You should set a monthly goal. You should set a biannual goal. You should set an annual goal. And you should set what do you want your practice to be 3 years down the road? Or do you want to be 5 years down the road? I have not done that. Because I'm not getting sufficient sleep. But the point is, you really should look at and say, like, this is what I want to accomplish today. This is what I want to accomplish this week. When you're on a rotation, like when you come down and do your like cardiac rotation with us down at Atlanticare, like you want to get something out of that month. When you're here on Vineland, I'm getting something out of my V 1 week. I'm getting something out of my V 2 week. I'm getting something out of my night shift week, right? If you set a goal that you're going to do this every single week, you will have accomplished what you set out to do.
And share it to hold yourself accountable. So it not only helps the people who have the skills to actually get you that goal, because if we know it, then we can help you get there. You know, otherwise it's only you muddling through and trying to find that. Like, what if one thing is your goal and it turns out there are 4 opportunities for you to meet that goal this week? You just didn't know about it, you know, because we didn't know. So sharing it and holding yourself accountable.
All right. The one thing that holds true, the only constant I find that held true in critical care is the better you know the physiology, or the better you understand the physiology, the better intensivist you're going to be. You understand the physiology of the event, you're going to understand why it's alarming. You understand the physiology of why this patient's in shock, you're going to treat the shock, right? You're going to have to become a really good physiologist. And there are a lot of resources for you to get there. So, target study it's not always busy, right? There are lulls sometimes during the day. There are sometimes that your service isn't stacked heavy, right? Or you have patients, but half of them are step down patients, or something, right? There are times when it isn't like the house is burning down and on fire. You have time to read on shift. Take that time that you could just, chit chat and take a break or whatever to like sit down, have a cup of coffee or like something else and like pick an article, any article, right? Ask the attending for an article. Or if you've set a weekly goal, there should be a list of things that you were planning on reading that week and read it then. Like use your time when you're here wisely. Create chalk talks for repetition, right? It's not just knowing it and understand. You have to read it, understand it, and be able to teach it, right? And when you're able to teach it, you have obtained mastery of the subject, because to teach something, you really have to understand it, because you have to be able to answer the questions that are going to come back at you. And the more you rep it, the more constant it's going to be. And it's not something you have to like think about. It's just something that you can just regurgitate. It's like muscle memory. It's like shooting a free throw. You don't think about shooting the free throw anymore. If you've done it 1,000 times, you just get in your stance and you go for it, right? Podcast. Because car on the time is dead, right? Car on the time is dead. Time on the treadmill is dead, right? Time on a bike, time running. It's like free air time. Like you can put something into your ear and listen to it. Even if you don't get all of it, you got some of it. And if you want to go back over it because it was really good, you put it back in your ear again the next time you go and do something, right? Like when you're doing things, there are times to maximize your efficiency. So I'm not big on books, because it's not targeted reading, because you'll read a chapter that will tell you everything you already know, and you just wasted 45 minutes reading something that didn't hash anything out for you. The ICU book is one of the things that's probably out there as like a standard that people should have read. The little ventilator books, there's the basic ventilator book and the advanced ventilator book. The little small green books, they're about 100 pages. They will teach you more about ventilators than pretty much any other resource out there. They are the easiest two things to read. And they read quick. It's big font. It's like my mom could read it from across the room. It's like huge font. The Range Physiology was one of the best online resources for physiology because it really goes through it. I think the guy's British or Australian. He's Australian. Heart lung. Oh, yeah. Like if you really want to get into the weeds of physiology, this guy from Stanford and UCLA put this thing up there. It's a ton of videos. I got through like maybe a couple of hours of it and was like trash. But some people really enjoy it, and some people like if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of like graphs and physiology and things like that, this guy's got it, right? ATS reading list, Bonk is going to give this to you guys like every month, because every month is a new subject, and he tends to give out the ATLS reading list plus one or two other articles plus a podcast at the beginning of every month. That should be some of your targeted reading. I signed up for Journal Feed. It's like $100 a year now, but basically every day it's going to email you an article, and these people curate through a bunch of different realms of literature to give you a new up-to-date article every day. It's an easy way to get on your email to get a little snippet, and if you find an article interesting or that applies to your practice, you can click on it and it gives you a free summary of the article, right? It used to be free, now you have to pay for it. ECG Weekly is $26 a year. It is by far the best resource out there for EKGs. They give Amalmatu is an ER physician out of Maryland. He's been doing this for a long time, and every Monday he gives you a 20 to 30 minute lecture on hyperkalemia and how to identify hyperkalemia, the subtleties of how to find a PE on EKG, the subtleties of how to identify an MI, right? Aside from ER doctors, critical care and cardiology probably order the most EKGs on everybody, right? But at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't call the cardiologist to look at the EKG, right? So you got to be the expert. EKGs are something that you really got to hammer home. This is how you do it. Internet Book of Critical Care has pretty much got everything out there. It's probably the fastest resource if you have a question in the middle of the shift about something to do. You can basically pull it up on your browser and keep it there, or you can download a different I have Opera. It's a different search engine. It's set to IBCC, so it's like an IBCC app on my phone. I just pull it up and it's there. Okay. The bottom line is British. They pull most of the critical care landmark journals that are coming out or that do come out, and they give a full breakdown of the article. It's beautiful. And that, at the end of it, they also list every other paper that they talk about. And they probably gave a summary on it. So you can go down a rabbit hole on the bottom line. It's highly recommended. You can sign up for their email. Every time they post a new thing, you get it into your inbox.
Like, never found an article that didn't already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so helpful. It's so
Yeah.
helpful.
Life in the Fast Lane, it's got everything. It's in bullet points. I don't find it tremendously helpful, but it has literally everything. So if you encounter it in critical care, it's in Life in the Fast Lane.
One thing I will say, like as a organizational side note, create an email address that you only use for these resources.
Oh yeah, I should have done that.
Only get
I
sent
did not
to
do
that email. Because then whenever you sit down to check that email, you see exactly how many you have to look at. You delete them when you're done with it, whatever, you move on. But like otherwise it just gets lost in your inbox, and this can be, upwards of 10 emails that you're getting a week, sometimes daily, and it really just like so just like have one email, never use that email for anything else, don't give it out anywhere else, just make it for like the educational.
I didn't do that. I just put it to my personal Gmail.
What you can do
It's
is
like
so
overloaded.
just take your personal Gmail, right, +1, and then have a folder for any email that goes to that +1. So in your email, it's only that folder. It never shows up in your inbox, never shows up in your other areas, but it's always there. And you see a number of how many things you have unread. When you're there, once you're done, just archive it. And then you can snooze it. Like say you want to get this done today, you came back, you were just way too sleepy, snooze it for tomorrow. And that way, this reading list that you have is always zero at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Some people are just really ADHD like that. Like, I have to go to bed with my reading list at 0. Doesn't mean I read everything. It just means it's snooze for another day.
That's a real power move.
You know, it'll come back and remind me.
So this is basically what I listen to. Like on a monthly basis, whatever they put out, I generally listen to it. Unless it has absolutely nothing that applies to me, in which case I don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are some of these things on here that don't do. Like ERCast you have to pay for, EMRAP you have to pay for, EMCrit you have to pay for now. I've tended to stop listening to EMRAP as much, and I start to listen to more EMCrit because every month he pulls 30 articles that are basically.
You pay for MCrit now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped.
Well, it's mainly because I stopped paying for EMRAP, and EMRAP had what's called like something reviews and perspectives where they would pull they pull 30 articles that are relevant to emergency medicine every month. And so if you listen to it for
This is how you're telling step today.
yeah. So
MRAP is also, I think, by far the best produced podcast.
Yeah.
It unfortunately is not something that you really need to be listening to for critical care, but like if you want to see how you do a really educational podcast,
Emergency
MRAP is the
medicine
top
by
of the
far
list.
has
Yeah.
the
Yes.
most, like.
EMCrit he's probably a douchebag, but he does but he does pull 30 articles a month that are completely specific to critical care that you don't have to go through CHEST, you don't have to go through ATS, like you don't have to go and find the articles. They're going to be there for you, and he's probably either got to have like that expert on his show at some point in time to go through the article and like everything. Like I found it to be for me as somebody who only practices in critical care, it's probably the best podcast that's directed just at intensivists. Behind the Knife is really good. It has a lot. It's mainly based for surgical residents, but as you're going to take care of a lot of surgical patients, it's really well produced.
And the Internet Public Critical Care has a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put it on. I listen to it as well, but like I also read it, so like I
It's
just
pretty good as a podcast.
yeah.
They kind of-
Critical Care Reviews is okay. Poem Peeps is new. It's based out of a couple people from Hopkins. Neurocritical Care Society puts out their own podcast. Every once in a while, they'll have something that's really applicable to you. Curbsiders and Clinical Problem Solvers, I listen to them only when I find like that it's relevant to me. I don't listen to them all the time, but sometimes
We'll send you the ones that are relevant.
sometimes they have really good ones. Freely Filtered is a nephrology podcast by Joel Toff, who's like at Kidney Boy. He's like basically the only guy who shows up as like the nephrologist on Critical Care podcast. He puts out his own one where they review everything nephrology with a bunch of other nephrologists. They generally put out like one a month. They tend to be really long, but they go deep diving on the literature. Cardio Nerds I have found to be immensely helpful. They really hammer away at a lot of advanced cardiology concepts. Critical Matters is ED ECMO. Whenever they put something out, ED ECMO is pretty good. ACRAC is an anesthesia critical care podcast. They put out a lot of stuff on like TAVRs and valves and cardiac surgery. That's pretty helpful. Maryland Critical Care Project it's hard to listen. Like the audio isn't good on Maryland Critical Care Project, but their topics are really
But
good.
then if you go to the website, the core lectures are uploaded now on the website. I'm not recommending you do this, but if you are driving, you put up your phone, log your website, play the video, just don't look at the video,
Yeah.
and then you get the good quality on
Yeah.
it.
I do.
ICU EDU is Sarah Krager. She's like Stanford and UCLA. She puts out her own ICU thing now. It's really good. And then the L Word. This is put out by Gita Pensa. It's all, the L Word here is litigation. She put out about 10 episodes. I think she's going to go out for season 2. Unfortunately, getting sued is going to be part of your practice at some point in time. I'm listening to this now. I didn't listen to it as a trainee. It's probably worth listening to because they go through like how you're going to get served. What does a deposition look like? What does going to court look like? What does settling look like? And things like that. So they're about 45 to 50 minutes an episode. I found it really depressing, but it's something that I've basically forced myself to do. And unfortunately, they do go over like, documentation practices and things like that. So for us, as you're moving into your career, at some point, you should probably listen to this.
And almost every single one of these authors of these podcasts, when they're publishing these episodes, they go ham on studying this material. And they know that there's more than one way to explain these topics. And yes, sometimes.
But also, most of these come with show notes, and so if they have like an expert, like Cardio Nerds will bring on like the prior head of the American Heart Association or something like that, and whatever his research topic is, he'll quote studies, and they put the studies in the show notes.
Yeah.
So what I found not only helpful is to listen to what they say, but then they've already curated a list of articles that they have found important, and so then I pull those articles and I'll read at least the abstract, and if I found it really good, then I'll go and pull a full article. So it's just another way, like looking through the show notes on a lot of these different things. When they go over a trial, if they went over the trial, it's probably important, so you should probably pull and read the trial. And we'll try to do this year as we do journal clubs to start pulling the most relevant articles.
So saying these authors of these podcasts, they publish tutorials that help simplify some of the advanced